Welcome to Pigeon River Farm, doing farming right. I'm Robert Brown, the owner of Pigeon River Farm. Thank you for viewing. Good evening. In tonight's episode, we're going to talk about fertilizing the pasture and why that's important. And I want to kind of dispel one of the myths that are out there. It's funny, I hear so many people, you're organic, so there's no way you can use fertilizer. Absolutely farthest from the truth. We utilize the best fertilizer that you can purchase. It's going to have to be OMRI listed. The fertilizer is going to have to be verified clean. That's what the OMRI listing is all about. So there's no toxins in the fertilizer. It's all a natural product that we're putting in. So what we normally do, and if we can get out this early, and that's kind of the secret to things, we can get out early enough, and it's the latter part of March, very unusual situation here, to be able to get out at this time of the year and actually get the fertilizer applied onto the field. So what we're doing is we're putting in Super Cal SO4. Basically, it's a high density calcium and sulfur mix. It's what we need to put on based on our soil tests. It's not the only ingredient by any means that we're going to use, but that's what we get for early application. And because we have grazing animals, we have multiple species here. So we got the cattle, actually we got the horses, we have the goats, and we have the poultry. So we're putting a lot of manure enrichment on the soil, but we need something to kind of mellow it out, to change the pH level, and the soil needs this amendment put on it. So we start relatively early, as I said, and we're blessed because there is no snowpack. The last 3 years we've had a heavy snowpack at this time of the year, unable to fertilize at that point, mainly because you get the runoff, and I don't want to run, even though it's a natural fertilizer, it's an OMRI listed fertilizer, we don't need it running in our rivers and streams, absolutely not. So I have to have kind of a strategy. Well, this year is the perfect year to apply. So we've been out applying the fertilizer. I'm using a broadcaster, same one I do with my seeding on the back of the, I use a big tractor because it's warmer. That's the predominant reason I'm running. It's easier to operate and so on, but I'm using a big tractor because it's darn cold out yet. But the pastures are clear, so we're putting that on. My rate that I'm applying in most fields, some will vary slightly based on our soil tests, but I'm putting it on 100 pounds per acre. And this new spreader that I have works really well, very accurate. I spent some time getting to calibrate it. I've mapped the fields real well, so the first one's a little bit of a guess. But once I got the settings correct, we're pretty darn accurate on that 100 pounds per acre. We'll be doing additional fertilizing throughout the year, but this one is critical for rapid growth. So you can see with the video here that I am just making multiple passes. The soil is right at that marginal level of being too moist. I'm leaving slight depressions in the soil, but again, it's so early in the year, they'll come out. That really isn't much of a problem. I mean, in a perfect world, I would either get on it when it's completely ice, but we're kind of out of that now, or it would be completely dry. So you have to do a risk analysis. So slight damage to the pasture, ever so slight, but there is some damage to it, versus the value of putting the fertilizer on. So these are all decisions that have to be very rationally decided upon. And then the speed at which you travel. If you notice that all of this is drone footage, and I use the drone not only to get this video footage for you to review, but also I use it for actually making sure my broadcast level was wide enough. So yes, I can see where it deflects and so on, but when I can review after a couple passes with the drone, I look at the video and I say, hey, yep, that's right where I want, so I make sure my pass-to-pass ratio is correct. So these are things that are critical. So if you got pasture land, make sure that you get fertilizer on it. There is more. I've actually rented land that was so terribly depleted. There's this feeling if you raise grass on it or alfalfa, you don't have to put any fertilizer on it. It couldn't be farther from the truth. You're consuming a lot. Every ton of hay that you take off the field and this way it was explained to me, you are taking off more value in nutrients. And if you think about the chemistry of what you're taking off, all the micronutrients and so on are being taken off greater than the value of the hay. Now, since our hay is all utilized on our own farm, we're regenerating that and actually increasing it because of the subsoiling of the plants. The rented ground and purchased hay, I'm importing minerals. But we need to make sure these minerals and micronutrients are actually accessible to the animal. So that is one of the roles of the calcium SO4 that we put on there, and then you'll see shortly we'll be doing some using some biological, not the bad ones, the good biological. We'll be putting on the good biologics to get them to work, but it's all kind of a rhythm that the soil has to be in conjunction with the cattle grazing. So as you've seen, it was pretty busy. Took quite a few hours and quite a few tons of fertilizer, but it's done now. And I'm just getting ready to start to spray in here shortly. And then once the grass is about 6 to 8, 10 inches tall, depending on the condition of the field, we'll be moving the cattle in there. Right now, we got one sacrificial area that they're on, and they're eating on their bales, and they'll be on bales here for a little while yet, especially this year because we want to really treat our pastures right. So I thank you very much for your time and have a great evening.